Um, so the recording is starting. So let's dive directly into studying. I wasn't. I didn't come through all the things that you studied the last Shiurim with Rav Shmuel. I'm supposed to take the topic of Torah reading today. So I hope we'll be able to come through it the best way possible today and finish before next week. And I will be with you also in the coming weeks. So if you have any question or special desires, you can write to me, and I'll be happy to address the any topic. But we'll try to focus on the topic that is supposed to be the main one. Here, I'll start sharing Torah reading. Now, we all know Torah reading, but even though we know Torah reading, it doesn't mean that we know why and why they do it and what is both the sources, because we take everything we see today for granted. Like we have an assumption of the way things are done because this is what we know. We want to go through the source to see how they developed. I didn't take all aspects. So many sifim in Shulchan Aruch connected specific to Torah reading, but I want to address the principle. Now, we talk about the Shiur today about Torah reading and not about Torah studies, which is two different things that are connected. And we'll touch that. The first source that I brought, I hope, the first and second source I brought are quite known, but the first one is the first place in the Torah that we have a clear, I would say, a clear mitzvah of reading the Torah. In the Torah, we have many times the idea of studying Torah. That is something you have to think about, learn, and so on. We see that, for example, I'll start from the second source. The second source, I hope most of you can already recognize where it comes from. והיו הדברים האלה שאנוכי מצווך היום על אביך, ושיננת לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ולכתך בדרך, ושלוחך ובקומך. What did I just quote?
Estat Shema.
Kriyat Shema, of course. It's the first paragraph of Kriyat Shema. That take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children, recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. So this is a very clear mitzvah of studying Torah all the time. Recite them again and again. But it's because it's so general, it's very not concrete. Because when you tell someone you have to study Torah all the time, it's actually too big to frame it. What does it mean? When I eat, I'm supposed to study while I'm eating. What is the and it feels in many ways as all of Kriyat Shema that it's more a principle aspect, right? That you should love God with all your heart. It's that's not concrete. It's a message. It's an idea, but it's not something concrete. And that's also why the rabbis go to what does it mean? Even when God, if God takes your life, that you're supposed to. So it's because it's a more general and these kind of wording we have quite a few times, but there's one place that is specific about a mitzvah to read something specifically in a specific place. And that comes not every week or every Monday and Thursday but it comes let's see if I'll test your Torah knowledge here. The text is actually just in front of you, so you can you can cheat and read. But actually, it's a mitzvah called mitzvah hakel. Not very known mitzvah. It happened every 7 years. Okay, so the story is as follow. In Dvarim, in the very end of the Torah, did one of the descriptions of Shemitah. Shemitah is the seventh year. Shemitah is one of the things that came so long that even it came into the Scandinavian languages as Sabbath. A seventh year, Shabbat year, Shemitah is a Shabbat year. And that was a year of not working a whole year, that you were not supposed to, you're not allowed, you have to leave your field to the poor and to the animals, and you're not supposed to work. And then every seventh year, it says here, and Moshe instructed them as follows. Every seventh year, the year set for remission, Shnat Shemitah, at the feast of Booth, Chag HaSukkot, when all Israel comes to appear before your God in the place that God will choose. So this is the pilgrim of Sukkot. We have the three holidays of pilgrimage, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. So in Sukkot, at the end of Shnat Shemitah, when all Israel comes to appear in front of God in Jerusalem, or in the place that God will choose, that we know later become Jerusalem, you should read the teaching aloud. You should read in the Hebrew, the word is Tikra et HaTorah hazot neged kol Israel beoznehem. So you should read this Torah, and the discussion about what this Torah is. Some say the whole Torah. So all of Israel are supposed to stand there while the Kohanim read all of the Torah. That's one of the opinions. Try to imagine this, like the five books of Moses read in a row. Right now, to read one parasha, it takes it depends how long it is, but somewhere between 15 and 45 minutes. Reading the whole Torah will be quite, but here we have. So reading this Torah, some say it's only all of Sefer Dvarim, and some say it's only specific chapters of Sefer Dvarim, of the book of Deuteronomy. But here, you shall read this teaching aloud in the presence of all Israel. Gather the people. This is Hakel. This is why it's called Mitzvat Hakel. Gather the people, Hakel et ha'am, men, women, children, and the strangers in your communities. So also the foreigners, Ger, those who are not Jews that live in the area, that they may hear and so learn to revere your God and to observe faithfully every word of this teaching. So we have here, if I remember correctly, the only place in the Torah that it says specifically, in a specific time, reading specific words. So yes, later there will be discussion which words they are, but regardless, it's very clear that the Torah here talks about something specifically. Even if we don't know what it originally was or what the Torah meant, we do know that it points in a specific text that should be read in a specific place in front of all the people. So this is the first public rule of reading the Torah. So I would say these two, and that is only once every 7 years. So from a place that in the Kriyat Shema we say you're supposed to recite them all the time when you stand up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep, and wherever you walk, you should talk to them all the time. And the other souls that come and say you have to read it once every 7 years at minimum. It's a big gap between these two directions, and of course this is not the direction any of that we are following, except that the principle of you're supposed to study Torah all the time is still a principle as much as you can. But it's not a rule of you have to in a specific time. Like I can't come to you in the middle of the walking the streets. Why are you not studying Torah right now? It's not a even though it says "Belechtecha b'derech" while you walk on the ways, it doesn't mean that you broke a rule not studying Torah every second of the day. Um, so, so now we go over to the direction that is more the principle of when are we supposed to read the Torah, and when I say we, it's a specific we as a group, because there's a difference between we as individuals and we as a group are supposed to read Torah. And here there's come a debate in the Talmud in Bava Kama. Everyone know that the Talmud is? Yes, someone can help those who are too shy to ask. Anyone? I'll point. If no one volunteers, then I will call you out.
Sorry,
What
you ask what is the Talmud is?
is Talmud? Yes, Tikva.
It's discussions about the Torah, opinions, different opinions about the different rabbis.
Yeah, but from when? When and where?
There's two Talmud. It's Babli Talmud and Jerusalem.
Thank you so much. You already answered my second
Jerusalem.
question.
Yeah.
The question because we have the next source will be from Talmud Yerushalmi. So you said you have a Talmud Bavli, but if someone just say Talmud anywhere, if someone says in the Talmud it says or in the Gemara, it refers to the Babylon Talmud. This is the main one, the one we use usually. So that's why if it just says Talmud, it means the Babylon Talmud and not Yerushalmi. It's called Yerushalmi, but it came from the Galilee. But the Babylon Talmud, in the years, we talk about more or less the year 200 to 500, more or less at the main, maybe 250 to 500, but it continued to be edited very, very late afterwards. So this is the Talmud. And the discussion, they actually don't discuss the Torah. They use the Torah, they use the verses, what they discuss is the Mishnah. You have Mishnah and Talmud, and they are the discussions goes on the opinion that appears in the Mishnah, using the Torah, of course. Of course, they study Torah. All of that is the what we call the Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral Torah that is studied and discussed in the Talmud. So in Talmud Bava Kama, can someone help me reading? Anyone?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Ezra instituted 10 ordinances read on Shabbat in the afternoon, and then they also read Torah on every Monday and Thursday. That communities shall read the Torah on Shabbat afternoon due to those who sit idly on street corners, and that they should read the Torah on every Monday and Thursday. The Gemara asks.
So here comes a question. So it's start with a quotation. The quotation is Edra instituted 10 ordinances. It's important. Ordinances is not mitzvot. It's takano. It's something that he said we obliged to follow, but it's something he instituted. He said like from I decide now that this is so important that we do this and this. And there's a list of 10. I just brought the ones that is relevant for our topic. 10 different ordinances that he created. And the one that all that the community should read the Torah on Shabbat afternoon, due to those who sit idly on the street corners, and that they should read the Torah on every Monday and Thursday. Okay, this is something that we know that we read. And then the Gemara asks, and now we have a good debate. So this is a quotation, and then starts the debate. Yes, continue.
The Gemara asks, did Ezra institute this practice? But it was instituted from the beginning, as it is taught, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Those who interpret verses metaphorically said that water here is referring to nothing other than Torah, as it is stated. How everyone who thirsts come for water. Since the Jews traveled for 3 days without Torah, they became weary, and therefore the prophets among them arose that instituted for them that they should read the Torah each Shabbat, and pause on Sunday, and read again Monday, and pause on Tuesday and Wednesday, and read again on Thursday, and pause on Shabbat Eve, so they won't tarry 3 days without hearing the Torah.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. So let's pause here. Can you explain?
No, I just want to ask the question because I kind of feel like the 3 days that it's mentioned here is kind of a symbolic number.
Yes, it is, of course.
I just want to ask, like, what's the symbolic meaning behind it, if you want to
Okay, so I'll come to that. So it starts with a classical Talmud discussion. The Talmud brings a quotation and then says, but can it really be so? We have another source that tells us something else. Here the Gemara quote and says, Ezra instituted these, but how can we say that Ezra instituted? Who is Ezra?
One of the great sages.
One of the great sages?
Yeah, if not during the Babylon and after the first destruction of the temple.
Yes, and that's why he's actually not of the sages. Because the sages, usually when we talk about the sages, we talk about the Chachamim from Mishnah and Talmud. Where do we have Ezra?
I don't know. I usually read Ezra and Nehemiah or something like that.
Yes, you're right, Ezra
together.
and Nehemiah.
And they say the great sages, but
where are Ezra and Nehemiah? Where do they come from?
They are not in the Torah, one of the...
Not in the Torah, but in the Bible, in the Tanakh. Ezra and Nehemiah are 2 books of the Tanakh. They are in the Ketuvim, so they are not sages. Sages is a period of the rabbis. Ezra didn't know the word rabbi. He never heard of it because the word rabbi didn't exist in the time of the Tanakh. Ezra is very early in the time of the Tanakh. We talk about around the year 500 and the time that the people went back to Zion after exile in Babylon, and the building of the second temple, the start of the building. So he's in the beginning of the second temple. The Mishnah start at the end of the second temple, 500 years after Ezra. Okay, so it's a very big day. So he's not part of the sages. He's part of what we call he's the beginning of what we call HaKnesset HaGedolah, which is mentioned in the Masechet Avot. We talk about it in many other places. So Ezra is the beginning of the new era that is between the time of the Torah and the prophets and the time of the sages. This is a period of a Knesset HaGedolah. Ezra is the first one.
Is he the one that goes that escapes to Yavne? No.
No. That happened in the Mishnah time. That Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. That's in the Mishnah and the Talmud. That's not in the Tanakh. The Tanakh finishes around minus 150, 200. That's the last book of them. The last books of the Tanakh are in that period. In the end of the book of Daniel, for example, he's in the time of Chanukah's story. So that's that's more or less the last books of the Bible, which is minus 150. While Mishnah, or the story you just referred to, is in the beginning of the first 100 the first from 0 to 200, more or less the time of the Mishnah. So anyway, but we'll focus. So Ezra is from, when we talk about here about Ezra, we talk about one of the books of the Tanakh and the Knesset Agdola, what they call the big assembly. So he, as the quotation starts, he instituted different thing that Jews should do, and one of them was the reading the Torah. But then it says, the Gemara asks, but was it really him? How can you say that? It was instituted from the beginning. What does it mean from the beginning? From the Torah time, from the time of the Torah. As it is taught, and they went 3 days in the desert, in the wilderness, and found no water. Where did this quotation come from?
So it's written there, Exodus.
Right, it says here from Exodus, but it's not only from the book of Exodus, it is directly from the Exodus. This is the first story after opening of the sea. So after they were the the most amazing vision that ever any Jew saw, as the rabbis say, then the next story is they went 3 days in the desert, and there was no water, and they found no water, and then they complained, and then the complaint starts. So you can see it's a long tradition for Jews to complain already from getting out of Egypt from the very beginning. But we're talking about a different tradition. So here they said 3 days without, and they found no water. And here, those who interpret verses metaphorically said that the water here is referring to nothing other than the Torah. We talk about that the Torah nimshela lemayim. The Torah is like water, as it is stated. Everyone who thirsts, come to the water, come for water, and that's a metaphorical, like those who thirst, those who need, come to the source that will help you, and that is the Torah. And since the Jews traveled for 3 days without Torah, they became weary. So the prophets among them arose and instituted for them that they should read from the Torah each Shabbat, pause Sunday, then Monday, pause Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday, pause on Shabbat Eve. So there are never 3 days without Torah. Okay, so, and Pauline, you asked why 3 days? Is anyone here who can answer that? Why 3 days is so crucial?
It was about the very word. I just translated because I didn't understand what it meant.
Now, weary means
Tired.
yeah, exhausted. But why 3? You're right. Number 3 is very important.
Yeah, because they started to they started to lose the meaning of the life.
Yeah, but why the number 3 is important here?
I don't know.
Okay, we have that in many other places. There's the number 3 represent what we call chazaka, chazoke. Don't know how many of you heard the word chazoke, but that's a very important word, chazaka. Chazaka comes from the word chazak, like in Hebrew, strong, but means something that is binding, something that holds. And in the Jewish tradition, when you do something 3 times, then it's a chazok. If you don't do it once or twice, then it's just something you do. But as soon as you do it 3 times, then you are obliged. Then it's a traditional thing. Well, for example, when I meet someone that I usually don't meet 2 days, in Hebrew you say pam shlishit glida, the 3rd time an ice cream. But the 3rd time in the Jewish tradition is 3rd time chazaka. It said, be careful that we shouldn't meet tomorrow, because then we are obliged to meet every day. because if we meet 3 days in a row, then we have to meet every day. That's an example, but we use it in many other aspects also in halacha. That the third is when something becomes 3 times, then it's like always. Then it's something you custom to do. So if they have 3 days without Torah, they will be accustomed to not having Torah with them. So the institute did not. You can't be 3 days without Torah. We have to make sure that at the maximum you'll be without Torah, it would only be 2 days. And that's why they instituted Shabbat. Now I know 7 doesn't. You can't how to say you can't divide it in 3. 7 is so they have. Sometimes it's closer from Thursdays to Shabbat and from Shabbat to Monday. But now, if you ask me a historical tradition, was it so? It's very difficult to say that it's because of that pause that they instituted it on Monday and Thursdays and Shabbat. Because there's actually something else that Monday, everyone, we don't understand it today, but everyone knows in the ancient times what Monday and Thursday is. Can you guess? So we have in Masechet Megillah, for example, and in other places, that originally Purim was a high holiday that was moved. Actually, we have this year too. This year, the Purim won't be on the same day they usually are because we have Purim Mishulash, so it will be 1 day later in Jerusalem, for example, than what usually, because the Shabbat comes in the middle. So they moved Purim to Sunday. Originally, Purim was moved to always fall on Monday or Thursday. Why did they do that? To make sure that the Megillah will be read while people are gathering. Monday and Thursday were the market day, Yom Shuk. They were the day that people from the area came with their fruit, vegetable, everything they wanted to sell to the center of the city to sell in the market. So Monday and Thursday were market days. So it makes sense that historically, for example, if Ezra instituted these ordains, it's not necessarily thinking of the 3 days, but more to put it at the times where people gather. And but here comes a different tradition, different interpretation. Now, I'm not saying that it's not about what's historically correct, but I'm saying probably there was another reason to do it specifically in those days, but it fits so with a spiritual principle, saying you shouldn't be 3 days without Torah. And that's why we have that Torah reading in Monday, Thursday, and Shabbat. Now they added. Let's continue the. Initially, they instituted that one man read 3 verses. Alternatively, that 3 men read 3 verses, corresponded to priests, Levites, and Israelites. Okay, so they talk here about the development. In the beginning, it was enough with one man reading at least 3 verses. Now, that's not a lot, right? When we talk about the Torah, 3 verses would have been very short. But then they added 3 men reading 3 verses. And why correspond to priests? What are the priests here means Kohanim. I should have changed it. Kohanim, Levim, and Israel. So the 3 categories we have, that every one of them should read 3 verses, which represent all of Israel. Kohanim, Leviim, and Israel, everyone are involved. And then Ezra later came and instituted that 3 men always read, and that 10 verses altogether be read by them, corresponding to the 10 idlers. Batlanim, because we have to have at least 10 people who sit and study all the time, and that's why we have at least 10 verses from the Torah read. And this is the rule for Monday and Thursdays and Shabbat Mincha. Now, yes, Lior.
Hi, I'm sorry, I just have a question. Maybe you went over it and I just didn't understand, but I'm just wondering how come they are saying that they became weak when they didn't have the Torah for 3 days, but at this point they didn't receive the Torah yet, right?
Hi, Liora.
Because it's just
Now
after
you're ruining
no?
you're ruining a midrash with the facts. Something you're not allowed to do. Using the facts to ruin a good midrash.
No?
You're of course right. They received the Torah 3 chapter afterwards, but the tradition said that Abraham studied Torah and Torah existed already in Beit HaMidrash of Shem ve'Ever. The rabbis put the Torah, take it already back much longer, and
But then how did they receive the Torah? Is it like through prophecies? Because Moshe was a prophet, so is it through prophecies or was
are you asking a practical question, like historically? Because that I
no, it's
can't
like an
answer. I
opinion
wasn't
of the
there.
rabbi. I don't know, I'm sorry, it's confusing me.
Yes, so that's why I'm saying that we need to. If you ask me about the truth, I have no clue. I have
Spiritual,
no clue what
the
they did and
spiritual
what.
aspect.
If you ask me about the rabbi, like they don't think about that question, because they don't try to tell a coherent story of a
Yeah, okay.
true. That's why midrashim can many times they don't have to fit with each other. You can have midrashim about the same story that contradict each other, and
Okay.
the rabbis don't care about that. Because
Okay.
the midrash, it's not a history book that's supposed to find out what are the facts. They use it to say something principally. And I know some rabbis will be devastating hearing me saying something like that. And say, how can you say such a thing? But I think I can insist that quite a few places in the Talmud you can see how they are aware of that it's not a historical discussion. So we don't need to solve such questions, even though you're right in principle. And I'm very happy to see you're aware and remember also where it's placed compared to the Torah. And you're definitely 100% right. I will say even more, the next story after this story is the story that in another midrash, this is where God gave them Shabbat and some halachot. This is the next story after this story that we just read about, where would they talk about as if the Torah exists. And so maybe it's a different Torah. Maybe Torah is just studying, like the idea of studying God's word, which some of it existed also before. It's not a specific word. It can be you can explain the way you want. In Talmud Yerushalmi, we have a clear quotation from Masechet Megillah. Moshe enacted that Israel should read the Torah on Shabbatot, on Yamim Tovim, on Rashi Chodeshim, and on Chol HaMoed, for it is written, and Moshe declared God's appointed times to the children of Israel. So here we can see the source saying that we have to read Torah on Shabbat and Chag. Yamim Tovim is high holidays, and Rosh Chodesh, new month, Chol HaMoed, that these go back to Moshe in instituting. So we have Moshe instituting the main Torah reading that we have on the high holiday, and Ezra the added ones to Mincha on Shabbat and Monday and Thursday. So this is the thing that we have. I'll go quickly by because I want to come through all the things that we are Now we have a principal ruling, and here it's not the ruling of it's less in effect today. But the Talmud says, Rav Huna Bar Yehuda said, in the name of Rabbi Ami, a person should always complete his Torah portions with a congregation. Bible twice, the word is mikra, so the biblical reading, the direct word of the Torah, twice, and translation once. Shnai mikra v'chad targum. You will see until today people that insist of reading the Torah twice, reading the Parashat Shavua every week, twice at least in the clear wording, and one in translation. Have any of you been to a Yemenite synagogue? So in a Yemenite synagogue, until today, if you go to, you'll see that the reading of the Torah takes twice as long, because they always put young boys next to the Torah reader, and every verse, the reader finishes a verse, and then the young boy reads it in Aramaic. It will be similar, let's say, here in Denmark, that will take a young boy standing next to the Torah reading, and will read the verse in Hebrew, and then he will read it in Danish. It's the same, and it's not a joke. This is Aramaic originally was the language everyone knew. The Hebrew they didn't understand in that high level when they went deeper in the living in not only also in Israel they spoke Aramaic, so Hebrew became less and less a spoken language. So they read into translation. You can see it was a ruling. You have to read the translation too. In many ways, I would argue that this applies for us today. Now that we'll read out loud, the problem is that the Yemenites, for example, they do it until today in Aramaic, but no one understands Aramaic. So they just do it because the ruling said that you have to read the translation, but not to make everyone understand. So they read it with no one understanding the Aramaic. It does help to improve your Aramaic because you hear the Hebrew first and then Aramaic, then it helps to improve it. But it's but I would say that the principle here is actually that you should read the parasha every week in your language, not necessarily in the synagogue ritually. Originally, it was with the congregation. So ritually, they had to read it with translation. Okay, that's the original, but already in very early stage, they removed the translation because people didn't understand the translation anymore. So already in the time of Rashi and others, it changed. Yes, I have two here. Benny and Chaya. Yes, Benny first.
Well, we are one person, so
But
I'll
two
just be.
hands.
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Well, my family, you know that as well. They're Yemenite Jewish, and I've been told from my father and also from my cousin exactly what you are saying as well. That since they were kids, they had to understand and they had to learn Aramaic, and especially my cousin, who coincidentally also moved here to Denmark, told me it was very, very strict the way that they have to learn this, and therefore both be able to speak both prayers, both in Aramaic and in Hebrew. So
Yes.
you're 100% correct about this, and it's very interesting that you're also taking it up. So thank you for that.
Yes, yes. But they're the only ones who still keep the original demand from the Talmud time that we just read. But it's important to the reason I bring it up is to also underline for you that the importance of understanding the Torah, that's not only about reading it ritually. I understand the Hebrew, so I don't think I need to read it in Danish because I understand the Hebrew much better. But some of you maybe don't understand the Hebrew in the same level as I do, and then it's important to read it in your own languages. If it's French, Danish, Finnish, or English, that's up to you. But but there is a principle of trying to learn it in the local language too. Yes, Esther.
I just checked from my Shiur that on Mondays and Thursdays is Tachanun. Can you explain about the concept of Tachanun? Thank you.
No, because Tachanun is a whole other topic,
Okay.
so I won't go
Then
into.
I will study
We
it
have
later.
Tachanun every day, not only on Monday and Thursday. On Monday and Thursday, it's a longer Tachanun.
Okay, thank
That's the only reason that you have something about Monday and Thursday.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that, yeah. I don't know if there was already about Tachanun or if it comes, but good. Now, there are so many rules about the reading that we can't go through all of them. You can read, if you open Shulchan Aruch, I'll show if you go into Sefaria and look for Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim. Here I can show. It's actually quite simple to read. No, I went to a new book, so can Shulchan Aruch, who can help me? Chaya? What is Shulchan Aruch? Someone else?
I-
Shulchan Aruch. What is Shulchan Aruch?
Isn't it discussion of the halakha and interpretation?
I would say it's not. It's actually not a discussion and interpretation of halakha.
Is a recopilation of the traditions and rules and tradition. I cannot explain well. It's a recopilation.
Yeah. So Shulchan Aruch. When does it come? You know. That's very important. That is something that all of you should know. That all you should know by now. When is the time of Shulchan Aruch?
It's like the 16th century, I think.
Yes, thank you. It's the 16th century. Rabbi Yosef Karo is the name of the, but we have two presidents. Rabbi Yosef Karo writes the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is the bottom line. That's why I'm saying it's not a discussion. All the discussions are in the book that he wrote before, together with it, which is Beit Yosef. Beit Yosef are all the discussions and that he brings all the sources to every practical halachic question. The Shulchan Aruch is the bottom line. That Rabbi Yosef Karo says, this is what you're supposed to do. This is only the conclusion. Next to Shulchan Aruch, but Rabbi Yosef Karo, of course, he wasn't Ashkenazi. He was Sfaradi. He came from Spain and moved to Israel, lived in Tzfat, where he wrote Shulchan Aruch. And then the one that Ashkenazi follow is Remah, which, for example, in the text here, you can see that I put here in different font. Also in regular in Shulchan Aruch, you will see in two different fonts, but in the same middle section. The Remah and the Shulchan Aruch. Remah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlich, lived in the same time in Poland, and he adds comments to Shulchan Aruch with the Ashkenazi practices, or with things that he disagrees with Shulchan Aruch and brings another opinion from the Talmud or from Rishonim about what you're supposed to do. So this is the time, and this is the main main halachic book that we use until today to gather us about the practical Judaism.
From
So in
20 years
Shulchan Aruch,
ago,
with all these, we have not only Siman 143, not only 143, but from 130, I don't remember what, and until 145, it's about 10 chapters about Torah, rules of Torah reading. I didn't bring all of them. I brought here a few that we should. Yeah, so it starts. We do not read from the Torah with less than 10 adults who are free, non-slaves. And if they began with 10 and some of them left, they continue reading until they finish. Okay, so we have here a couple of rules. This also applies to other aspects. For example, also in Minyan, if we started reciting the Tfilat Shmoneh Esrei, and we were only 10 and one left, We don't finish at this one. We continue the prayer, even though we're less than 10. The same applies also to Torah reading. But you have to start the ritual Torah reading with 10 adults who are free. If each Chumash was written separately, even if they were each rolled like a Torah scrolls, we do not read from it until all 5 books are sewn together. Now, this is not relevant for you to learn from, but I brought it anyways, because of course today all the Torah scrolls are with all 5 books of the Torah. But I brought it because this comes about 500 years ago. And you see that they didn't have like 40 Sifrei Torah scrolls that we like we have today in the Copenhagen synagogue. And they didn't have, it was actually a very rare thing. And these scrolls, sometimes you had the Chumash scroll, just one scroll of one book. Chumash is one of the books, book of the Torah. So Chamisha Chumshei Torah, 5 books of Torah. So Chumash is one of them. And in theory, you had like one separately, and then you couldn't read from it because you had to have all 5 for the Torah scroll to be kosher. You had to have all 5 of them sewn together, as they are today. And Rema adds, and they must be rolled like a Torah scroll. But our Chumashim, even if all 5 books are bound together, we do not make the blessing over it. So when we talk about a book, because already in his time you had books of Torah written in handwriting, right? Because this is exactly the time where it starts. Print is in the very beginning. People still have written books. So it says, in our books, if it's a book of leather book, if it's not rolled like a Torah scroll, we can't use it to reading. Okay, even if all 5 of them are, you can see this is the sources he brings. He brings also who were the ones to say it, the Mordechai, and like different what we call Rishonim. I'm not going to test you about all these names because probably you don't know most of them, but the important thing is that it's rabbis that are from the time of the Rishonim, which means post Talmud and prior to Shulchan Aruch. These are the Rishonim, the big rabbis of that time. For example, Rashi and Rambam, Maimonides and Ramban, Nachmanides, Rif, and so you have many big rabbis of that time, the Rishonim. These are the ones that usually Rema quotes here. And in a place that has a Torah scroll, but the prayer leader is not an expert in reading using the correct Cantillon marks by heart, I saw that some have a custom that the prayer leader reads from the Chumash using the markings, and the one who got called up reads after him from the valid Torah. You can see here a description of a situation that people, because the Torah, if you saw a Torah scroll, there are no vowels. Oh, sorry, the only vowels. There are no how do you call them?
Consonant.
Consonant. Yes. So you have to know the word, the right way to read it. So if someone doesn't know how to read it, then he describes here a situation which comes 500 years ago, where someone reads to him the right way to read it, and then he reads it from the scroll. So they read every verse twice. If people in Copenhagen saw when I read the Torah, they will see that my son stands next to me and do all kind of show with fingers what is the right, because I don't have the time to prepare every Torah reading. It takes in the beginning, it takes 8, 9, 10 hours. For me, it will take 4 hours, but I just don't have the time in the every day to prepare, to be 100% prepared. So he helped me with showing what is the right way to sing the Torah. I have to know the wording, but that I know most of it from before. But yeah, and yes, Sarah.
One question just about a word here in the
Yes.
reading. Like it said 10 adults and in this text and not 10 men. Like, because now we go by the costume, not only 10 men, right?
I'll come to that.
Okay.
Yes, I'll have to be quick because we don't have a lot of time. Yes, Tikva?
I just wonder why Shulchan Aruch is calling served table. Why?
But I won't take it now. That's through a shiur where we'll talk about the whole structure of
Okay.
the Jewish books. Yes, Chaya?
I think I couldn't hear, but maybe you made some question about was this the book from Yosef Karo? Are you talking about the book of the laws, the
Yeah,
code?
Shulchan Aruch is Rabbi Yosef
Shulchan
Karo, the
Aruch.
book of the law. Beit Yosef is more than he wrote kind of an encyclopedia of all the opinions up to
But it's
the
about
bottom line
halacha
that he brought in
anyway.
Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to leave because sometimes I can't hear you.
No problem. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And we continue here. Even in villages that do not have a valid Torah scroll, they should not recite the blessing upon reading from a not kosher. So you can see that the recitation in synagogue has to be with a Torah scroll. If they have a different way to read the Torah, then they can read it, but with no blessing. It's not a ritual reading properly. And then we have here rules. You can go into Shulchan Aruch and read all the rules of the Torah reading, but you can see here also if there's any mistake. If an error was found in a Torah scroll during the reading, they should take out another Torah and begin reading from the place where the error was found, which happened in Copenhagen last year, for example. That suddenly we had to stop the reading, close the book, bind it, put it aside, and bring a new Torah scroll to read. That happened, that you find a mistake in the Torah scroll. Yes, I'll drop this and go to the other important parts. We have I'll bring the three last rulings here. I say there's much more to read, but this is like touchings of the rules. We have, as you know, on Shabbat there are seven people who are being called up. On high holidays there are 5. Yom Kippur we have 6. Rosh Chodesh 4, and regular day 3. So we have like different numbers connected to the specific days, how many people are being called up. And the Mishnah already says there's now when in the Mishnah time there weren't people who came up to read the bracha and then someone else read, but every person who was called up read from the Torah. But that was changed already long before the Shulchan Aruch, that people weren't scholars anymore. They didn't know the reading. So slowly it went to having a professional reader, and everyone else comes and only say the bracha before and after. That happened only in later stages, but originally the person who was invited, called up, he was supposed to read. And Benny will tell you again that in Yemenite synagogues, they still do that today. People are being called up, and immediately they just read the verse, the verses, the Aliyah la Torah, what they've been called up to read. They do that until today. I'm amazed when they go up, but I found out that they cheat because they put some marks in the Torah itself, so you can know when the verse starts and finishes, which some some say that it might be make the Torah scrolls not kosher. So it's I found out the cheat when I was called up to the Torah in a Yemenite synagogue and say, there are marks where the every verse finishes. So it's a bit easier, but it's still very impressive the way they do it. So a Kohen reads first, and after him a Levite, and after him an Israelite. And the reasoning here is very important on account of the ways of peace. No one will feel that who is more important. So we have clearly first Kohen, then Levite, and then Israel. Even if a rabbi is there and is more knowledgeable, he won't go first. The Kohen will go first. I bring it because it's actually most important to remember this part on account of the ways of peace. There's a reason that they have structure to who reads first and second and third and so on, is to have peace in the synagogue. So if anyone becomes angry that they weren't called up and they are why was he called up and not me, then they misunderstood the whole purpose that it should be the ways of peace in the congregation, and the synagogue shouldn't be a place of being angry with who was called up and so on. Yes, I want to two other aspects because I promise I will answer Sarah's very good question. The first is about who can be summoned up. And you can see originally, Shulchan Aruch comes and says, there are some people who can't go up to the Torah to read. A blind person, is Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, says, a blind person is forbidden to read. For it is forbidden to read even one letter by heart. Because you are supposed to, as we saw before, you have to read it from the Sefer Torah. A blind person can't read from the Sefer Torah, from a real scroll, and that's why he's not allowed to read. Even though he knows the whole Torah by heart, he has to read it from the Torah scrolls. And that's why he won't be called up, won't be summoned. And the Rema here adds, from his rabbi, from Maharil, the Maharil wrote that nowadays we may call up a blind person just like we call up an illiterate person. Because we have today the system of we have a professional reader who reads from the Torah and the other only says the bracha, then we're allowed to bring a blind person, which opens. It's actually quite amazing. This is a try to include people with disabilities, people who don't know how to read, and so that originally they weren't supposed to be called up. We want to include everyone. And now come the last part, Sarah, as you asked, what was the original? And amazingly, we'll find out here, the sages taught, it's in Talmud Megillah, all people count toward the quorum of 7 readers, because you have to have 7 readers for the Torah reading, even a minor and even a woman. Okay? So originally here, in principle, women were supposed to be could be part of having this 7 readers. One of the readers, or 2 of the readers, or 5 of the readers could be women too. This is original ruling from the Talmud. It's not a reform text here. That's something that was created 50 years. This is original from the Talmud, but there's already but the sages, however, the sages said that a woman should not read the Torah out of respect for the congregation. And you can already guess, yeah, I can see the frustration of some of you. What? What
Well,
is
do
it?
you mean that Ashkenazis are cheating us here in Europe, also not letting women reading it?
No. I'm not. I'm saying, first of all, already the Talmud brings the fact that in principle women can be part of the reading.
Yeah.
But then, as they say, already the Talmud says you're not. Already the Talmud long ago says that we don't do it out of respect to the congregation. What does it mean, respect to the congregation?
I have
This
no
can
idea.
be interpret to different directions. One of the regular interpretation will be that calling up a woman because men do not know how, that there are local men that don't know how to read, this will make them, they will be ashamed. I'm not talking about today, we're talking about 2,000 years ago. Yeah, you can see, actually until today, say, wow, see, even a woman can do that, right? This is something that in some traditional places you might still hear people say, right? And then these people it was said against, it is taken as a humiliation. So we won't bring women up to read, to not humiliate the men who are there, that the fact that they don't know how to read comes out. So this is the one direction. I can tell that there are other, for example, other places in reading Megillah, Shulchan Aruch says that women can read and men will be exempted of the like. If there's no men who can read, then the men will fulfill their obligation also if a woman reads Megillah. And that open to in Israel. You see today many places that have a joint Megillah readings for Megillat Esther. I know actually there's someone there's a group trying to do that in Copenhagen this year. So if any of you want to try to join that, but you can see here this is the opening that led to some liberal communities in Israel, liberal Orthodox communities, who changed that and have women reading the Torah, because that originally, as the Talmud says explicitly, that they count, and today it's not a shameful having knowledgeable women next to knowledgeable men. It's like having a, and it's also because it's out of respect to the congregation, then it's up to the congregation to decide what respects them and what doesn't respect them. And respect is a matter of it's not objective, right? It's subjective. So it opens to possible changes. So who knows how this will evolve? But this is an opening for something that can be discussed. As it says in Israel, as I said, in Israel, there are changes about that, and you have different lines in these liberal Orthodox synagogues. Some do a complete different women reading, so they do a women reading of according to the same way that you're supposed to read, but just men do for themselves and women do for themselves. So, but this is also something that they are doing the full reading, and some do even a joint reading. Very few places. This is very like people go after these symbols. As soon as you do that, oh, that means you are this and that. I'm just pointing out that halachically there's an opening here, but there are many who will say that this is not allowed, and also the fact of making changes is not allowed. So it's a but this opens and also gives an answer to you, Sarah, why the Shulchan Aruch starts with saying 10 adults, and because in principle, I'm trying to see the what it's. I just want to see the. Yeah, never mind. I don't see now, but anyways, this is why this is something that you might meet if you go to Israel as a matter of debate. Most rabbis will forbid it, but there are a few who are open to a change here. So you can see where the change, the open comes from. This is from here, and it's connected to a question of women's obligation of Torah reading. And here there are different opinions. Also, of rabbis 100 years ago, are women, because it's connected to time, right? The Shabbat, Monday, Thursday, that if it's connected to time, that it means that they are exempt, or is it a demand that they are included, among other things, because of the first source that I brought, which said that you have to read this teaching aloud in the presence of all Israel, gather the people, men, women, children. The Torah in the original place underlined how everyone has to be included, and that's why some interpret that women are obliged to be part of these things and to read. Remember that if someone wants the equal, I don't know how to call it, equal right of reading the Torah, it comes also with an equal demand of being obligated to follow that. And I think it's very important to remember that aspect too, that if you want the part that to be part of it, to take it, you're also supposed to insist on doing it and being obliged and obligated and do it every time that you're supposed to. Come in for mincha and Monday and Thursday to Torah reading and do it all the time. But I don't demand it from men, so it's a question: should I demand from women too? But in principle, if you fight for it, then you're supposed to really fight it because you believe it. It's important to do it all the time. Yes. So there, as I said, there are many more aspects. We can't cover all of them. I touched a few. You can read all the Shulchan Aruch is quite simple here. So just open Shulchan Aruch or Chaim, read the 10 chapters that are connected to the rules of Torah reading. And yes, Pauline, this will be the last question.
Does the fast, can you repeat? 7, 5, 6, 4, and 3 people. What occasions are they called up?
7, 6, 5, 4, 3. So 7 is Shabbat.
Yes.
6 is
5.
Yom Kippur.
Yes.
5 is high holidays,
Yes.
all the Chagim.
Yes.
4 is Rosh Chodesh.
Yes.
And 3 is regular days.
Monday and Thursday. Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yes.
Good. So we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shabuah Tov.
Bye bye.